I'm a member of ACCA UK, and I began my journey with IFRS training in 2009 because I was one of the few people in the country who had knowledge of IFRS, and India was supposed to move to IFRS in 2011. That was one of the reasons for my job in 2009. Later on, I had worked with XSS Consulting after moving on from Pioneer Corporation, and I started the first ACCA Institute at Delhi, co-founded with one of my partner, and I was delivering sessions on IFRS, and it was peak season of IFRS in 2014. Since India postponed the date from 1st April 2011 to 1st April 2015. And since I was delivering trainings on IFRS, I was in demand at that point of time. So KPMG approached me to join them, and I joined them on 10th March 2014. And I was promoted to the next level within 1 year because we managed the situation in KPMG wherein there was a lot of demand for IFRS training since it was peak season at Mumbai, at Delhi, at various locations, live online, from the corporates. So it was a very busy season with them, and I was with them till December 2016, and my main job was to deliver trainings on IFRS and IndAS. After December, I joined DMF Group as senior manager and was knowledge management head, also wrote a position paper on financial services sector. It was a short stint with them, and I decided to start my own in 2017 and started Viviana Business School at Gurgaon. I was 3 or 4 months into it. During this stint, I wrote a book on IndAS known as IndAS Concepts in One Day. And thereafter, I joined BDO as Director Accounting Advisory Services. So I was head learning solutions at BDO India and was part of accounting advisory services at Gurgaon. I was with them till June 2019, and now I am founder and CEO of Prometia Business School at Dehradun, and continuing with the trainings on IFRS on weekends. So this is my brief journey till now. Let's move on to the journey of IFRS, how it all started, who began it, why they are requiring everyone to move to IFRS, and even the US GAAP is very much similar to IFRS now. Now, what triggered this? A group of 9 countries decided that they should develop common accounting around the world. They also knew that the idea they are germinating today is going to be a big phenomena in the future. So they formed a committee. Initially, it was known as IASC, International Accounting Standards Committee. International Accounting Standards Committee. And they called it IAS, International Accounting Standards Committee, and they decided to issue standards, and they coined a word known as IAS, International Accounting Standard. So IAS was a name coined by them. So the responsibility was to issue standards. So the issuing standards was done with the name of IAS, and the first standard they issued was IAS 1, Presentation of Financial Statements. Presentation of financial statements. The second standard they issued was IAS 2, Inventories. As they were progressing, so they started developing standards on IFRS, which will help them to do accounting, or to develop it initially and later promote it worldwide so that countries and accountancy bodies can adopt them in future. So they were developing these standards with the idea that someday maybe the world will agree to them and all the accountancy bodies will agree. So they had taken support of these accountancy bodies and also the nod from these countries who were willing to develop uniform accounting globally. So they were issuing standards in the name of IAS 1, IAS 2. They had issued standards like IAS 3, IAS 4, IAS 5, IAS 6. The next standard is IAS 7. If you look at the list of the standards, you do not find these standards in the list. And someone who is willing to learn IFRS, when they go to the list of IFRS, they feel that why the list is incomplete. Like it's IAS 1, IAS 2, and suddenly IAS 3, 4, 5, 6 are missing. Why they are missing? These standards are either withdrawn or merged with other standards. Like there is IAS 1 revised. So there are some of the standards of IAS 3, 4, 5. They are merged with IAS 1, or a new standard has been issued against them. Is the reason you do not find that number in the list. International Accounting Standard Committee maintained that if they issue a new standard, they'll be issuing it with a new number and new name. If it is a development of the existing standard, they can revise it. But if it is a complete revamp of the standard, then they will withdraw the previous standard and will issue a new standard. The list continued till the standard IS 41. Like if in the list, if you look at standards, like there was a standard known as IS 11 construction contracts, IS 18, the standard on revenue. Even in India, we had been following a standard similar to IS 18 revenue and IS 11 construction contracts. Now in future, you will not find these standards in the list because they are being replaced by IFRS 15 revenue from contracts with customers. Now, if someone begins to learn IFRS from 2018 onwards, and if they look at the list of the applicable standards after 1st January 2018, they'll not find IS 11 and 18 in the applicable standard, though they'll get content of the IS 11 and IS 18, but as far as applicability of standards is concerned, they'll not find them in the list. IS 11 and 18 are replaced with IFRS 15 revenue from contracts with customers. There's another standard like IS 17 leases. From 1st January 2019 and in India from 1st April 2019, IFRS 15 in India from 1st April 2018 is replaced with IFRS 16 leases. So whenever ISB issues a standard or International Accounting Standard issued a standard, they do not give a same number. They could have done it like this, IS 18 revised, but it would have created a lot of confusion. They wanted to withdraw these standards because IFRS 15 is sufficient enough to cover all the standards and interpretations which are issued till date. So the journey continued with them till 41. IS 41 was the standard which they issued, the standard on agriculture which they issued in year 2000. And in 2001, they decided to form a new body. So International Accounting Standards Committee felt that they have become too big now, and International Accounting Standards Committee became a foundation in 2001. So International Accounting Standards Committee became IASC Foundation. IASC Foundation. I'll continue with the content of the terms here only. International Accounting Standards Committee became IASC Foundation. Today it is known as IFRS Foundation. They formed a new body and they handed over the role of issuing standards to a new body from 2001 onwards, that is IASB. IASB meant International Accounting Standards Board. So the role of issuing standards was handed over to IASB, and it's like a new boss coming in. They decided to change the name. They decided to make it more international. That international accounting standards were not giving that feeling of international financial reporting. The motto was to change the international financial reporting around the world. They coined a new word known as IFRS. And IFRS meant International Financial Reporting Standards. And they began their journey from 2001 onwards. And whatever standard they issued, now the requirement at that point of time was, if IFRS is a new word and ISB is a new body which is supposed to issue standards now, the requirement at that point of time was, these accountancy bodies and countries were demanding how to implement your international accounting standard, which you have been developing since 1973. It's been year 2000 and you have developed standards till IS 41 agriculture. Now how to get them implemented? We have no mechanism wherein you can help us out in implementing it. So the need of the hour was introduction of IFRS 1, first time adoption of IFRS. The first standard issued by ISB was first time adoption of IFRS. That was the need of the hour. Now whatever standards they issued thereafter, they started giving the name of IFRS 1, IFRS 2 share-based payments, IFRS 3 business combinations, IFRS 4 business contracts, IFRS 4 insurance contracts, sorry. IFRS 5 non-current assets held for sale, non-current assets held for sale, and the list continued till 16, and the list has reached the level of IFRS 17 insurance now, though insurance is not applicable and relevant as of today. This was supposed to be applied from 1st January 2021, but the lobby around it says that we are not yet ready, and this may get postponed to year 2022. So the date is tentative that only after year 2021 or 22 this standard is going to get an applicability date. It's not yet applicable. Insurance contracts is a new standard. Now when this gets applicable, the list which shows IFRS 4, now the list is complete. It runs from IFRS 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. IFRS 10 is consolidated financial statements. IFRS 11 is joint arrangements. IFRS 12 is consolidation disclosures. IFRS 13 is fair value measurement. IFRS 14 is on integrated reporting. IFRS 15 on revenue, 16 leases, and 17 is on insurance contracts. The list is complete. There's no missing standard. But in future, when IFRS 17 gets implemented, you'll not find IFRS 4 insurance contracts in the list. You'll not see, for the first time, the list will have a missing number IFRS 4, because whenever ISB issues a new standard, they give a new name. And if the standard is completely revamped, like this standard is completely revamped IFRS 17 insurance contracts, they replace it with a new number. If any new standard comes up in future, it will be coming in with the name of IFRS 18, IFRS 19, IFRS 20. Now, while they were developing these standards, they also encountered that some of the standards still had some of the issues which were unanswered through the standard. Now, how to clarify those issues? So they established one more body on the way, and it was known as SIC. SIC meant Standards Interpretation Committee. Suppose they introduced there was a requirement for interpretation on barter transactions. So IS 18 revenue was not sufficient for it. So what they did, they issued an interpretation related to IS 18 revenue, SIC 31, and they named it barter transactions. So whatever interpretation they issued it in the name of SIC 1, SIC 2, SIC 3, and whatever interpretations they issued till year 2000, till ISB was formed, they were naming them SIC. So whatever interpretations they issued from year 1973 to year 2000, they were naming them with the name of SIC. Whatever standards were issued, they were named IS 1, IS 2, IS 3. After year 2000, when ISB was formed, the first standard they issued was IFRS 1, and any interpretation issued thereafter got a new name. It was IFRIC, IFRIC. International Financial Reporting Interpretation Committee. And they issued interpretations in the name of IFRIC 1, IFRIC 2, IFRIC 3. Like there was a confusion between IS 11 and 18 that construction contracts, the builders who were building flats and were selling them in terms of units, they were selling in terms of goods. They were completing the flat and selling them. But they were recognizing revenue on the basis of IS 11 construction contracts. But in reality, they belong to the category of IS 18 revenue. So these builders were doing accounting as per their convenience. So this was clarified through an interpretation, IFRIC 15, agreements for construction in real estate. What this interpretation did, so IFRIC means the name IFRIC because it is issued after 2000. The name SIC because issued before 2000. This interpretation was clarifying that which standard is applicable. So the interpretation talked about that if buyer has control over design and specification, if buyer had control over design and specifications, the standard applicable is IS 11. But if buyer had no control over design and specification, buyer is simply buying whatever is being provided to the buyer, in a standard size, flat 2-room kitchen. This is a standard size. This is where the kitchen will get located or bedroom will get located, and the buyer has to buy the way it is. They cannot modify it. They cannot change it as per their requirements. Then, if buyer had no control over design and specification, it was considered as sale of goods. So the flat or building was considered as part of inventories of the builder, and revenue recognition was covered under the standard IS 18 revenue. So ISB has been issuing not only the standards, but they were also responsible for issuing any interpretations along the way. How they were supported? They were supported by a body known as Standards Advisory Council, SAC, Standards Advisory Council, and today it is known as IFRS Advisory Council. The IFRIC body, International Financials Reporting Interpretation Committee, today it is known as, so they have made our life a little bit easier. Today it is known as IFRS Interpretation Committee. If I sum up, the journey began with the formation of International Accounting Standards Committee, which became Foundation later on. Today it is known as IFRS Foundation. Today, IAC, International Accounting Standards Committee, is known as IFRS Foundation. IFRS Foundation is the monitoring body. They are responsible for monitoring ISB. ISB is responsible for issuing standards. They're supported by Standards Advisory Council, and they're also supported by IFRS Interpretation Committee for issuing interpretations on wherever there is a clarification required. So if I sum up, the IFRS of today, there's always a confusion whether shall I learn IFRS or shall I learn IS? Do I need to learn IFRICs? If I sum up, all the ISs issued and relevant and applicable today all the IFRSs which are issued, relevant and applicable today, all the IFRICs, all the SICs, which are issued and relevant and applicable today, are collectively IFRSs of today. There's no difference. The only difference is of a date, that some of the standards were issued before year 2000, some of the standards were issued after year 2000. They are collectively IFRSs of today. Interchangeably, we can say that they are all IFRS.